One of the least known aspects of Wuthering Waves' geography, the Etheric Sea, is something that seems so fundamental to Solaris 3 that characters seem to only mention it in passing, as if it were just an obvious, everyday kind of thing. However, as the Etheric Sea is gaining increasing plot relevance, being mentioned within the map lore of the Hyrule, talked about in the 3.1 livestream, and becoming more important as a goal of Star Torch, is revealed to be to get into space. Today, I thought it would be important to discuss what the Etheric Sea is, what it is inspired by in terms of literature and culture, as well as why it is potentially important. So, without any further ado, let's get started. If we are to go with the boring definition of the Etheric Sea, then it is simply one of the wave-worn phenomena, being one of the anomalies and natural disasters that occurred after the Lament, being placed in the same category of weird occurrences as, for example, the Great Glacial Lock that froze over the top of the Hyrule. It takes the form of a giant ocean made up of condensed remnant energy, which in itself are basically pure and complete versions of the frequencies that make up everything in Wuthering Waves. The peculiar thing about the Etheric Sea is that it actually hangs completely upside down in the sky, blocking out the atmosphere of Solaris 3 and functioning as a sort of inverted ocean. You can see this particularly within the opening scene of Wuthering Waves, where you, as Rover, wake up within the Etheric Sea, hanging upside down as you look upon the world below. This is why, for instance, air travel within the world of Wuthering Waves is difficult, and breaking out into space is nearly impossible, which has been expressed significantly within the current chapter of the Hyrule, where the wish to journey into space is evident. However, beyond that, the Etheric Sea is also capable of spawning many sub-disasters across Solaris 3. The most important of these is that the Etheric Sea, when it converges, can form tacet fields which spawn tacet discords, as high concentrations of remnant and frequency energy not only seem to create but also attract TDs. Beyond this, within Jinzhou, we also saw that drops of the Etheric Sea can fall down from the sky, causing retroact rain, which is capable of creating illusions and hallucinations of the past. As the rain is also made of remnant energy, it also attracts TDs wherever it falls, and anyone who dies in the rain will have their frequency caught up in it, which is why phantoms appeared when we were fighting in Jinzhou. However, as you probably know if you watch my videos, I'm not here to just talk about the lore, but also the references and symbolism behind it. With all the current information available, I can say with relative confidence that the Etheric Sea is heavily inspired, if not entirely based on, the sentient ocean within the science fiction novel Solaris by Stanislaw Lem. Beyond the fact that it has been proven that Kuro has used this reference within the Dreaming Deep lore, where both Lem and the spaceship which is central to the novel is mentioned, we discussed in previous videos how characters such as Kelvin and Hari can be correlated to Wuthering Waves through Rover and Shorekeeper, and some settings within the book, such as Kelvin's Island, seem to have also inspired places such as the Black Shores. Stanislaw Lem's Solaris, which tells a story of people trying to explore an alien planet, tells a tale of a giant sentient ocean that seems to act on its own rules and is capable of materializing illusions of nearly anything, including sentient people, which are nicknamed visitors. Solaris' ocean is sentient, and despite how hard humans explore and try to understand it, it is fundamentally impossible to understand. I have often taken Lem's sentient ocean to be a parallel to both the Lament and the Etheric Sea. The Lament is something that has lasted for 10,000 years and has never been solved, being something that humanity has failed to understand, a concept that is substantiated in many parts of the lore of Wuthering Waves. Within 1.2, when you're fixing corruption on the Black Shore signal towers, a series of cutscenes of the past Rover give some insight into the Lament, where they say that predicting both it and the Etheric Sea is beyond the capabilities of humanity. Within Chang'Li's story, there exists a Weiqi board that has been called by Shun Mao as the solution to all the world's problems, which is heavily inferred to be the status quo of humanity's deadlock with the Lament. That board's Weiqi composition shows an eternal co-situation, which we went through in detail in our Chang'Li video. It, and in wider terms the Lament, is a game which is impossible to understand or win. Both the sentient ocean in Lem's Solaris and the Lament are impossible to beat or understand, because they fundamentally can't be quantified within a human frame of understanding. They don't want anything. They don't seem to follow any identifiable pattern. They don't think in any particular way. They just do. Beyond the Lament, we also have some evidence that Stanislaw Lem's sentient ocean is linked to the Etheric Sea in more ways than just appearance. Although it has never been expressly stated, the Etheric Sea, which we know functions almost as a collective consciousness of remnant energy, functions on a similar principle to Lem's Solarian Ocean, which can also consume and replicate anything it comes in contact with, becoming an amalgamation of consciousness. The ending of Stanislaw Solaris is emblematic of this. The main character, Kelvin, seems to have finally returned home to Earth, but it is revealed that the vision is fake, and in actuality, he has been consumed into the writhing mass that is Solaris' sentient ocean. In Wuthering Waves, we get not only links to this kind of collective nature and behavior, but also dialogue that directly refers to it. Upon beginning Rover's journey, the Etheric Sea is one of the first things that the game talks about. Chisha mentions that the Etheric Sea seems to be able to track where you are and even follow you. An NPC within the Starward Riseway Institute, Cosimus, who specifically studies the effects of the Etheric Sea, describes it as trying to negotiate with an ocean that makes all the rules but follows none. What he says next, that someone has to learn to talk to it, is something that I find particularly interesting, because within Stanislaw Lem's novel, that's exactly what humanity has been trying to do: make contact, communicate with the sentient Solarian Ocean. But like the Etheric Sea, it doesn't respond or act in a way that is conceivable within a human frame of understanding. It follows no rules and adheres to no patterns, because it fundamentally isn't a human concept to begin with. In fact, Stanislaw Lem, writing Solaris in 1961, is often said to have written the book as a response to much of the science fiction of his time, which depicted alien life as human-like and anthropomorphized. In comparison, the ocean of Lem's Solaris is the opposite. It cannot be understood, communicated with, or even interacted with. It is incomprehensibly inhuman, and like both the Etheric Sea and the wider Lament that causes it, it is something that cannot be reasoned with, solved, or conquered. The purpose of the Solarian Ocean cannot be understood because the existence of the ocean has nothing to do with human beings. It is outside the realm of human activity with its purposes and motives. As such, even though the Etheric Sea seems as common of a facet of life as you looking up at the sky and seeing the sun, like Lem's Solarian Ocean, it remains an eternal enigma that the people of Solaris 3 can only learn about through latent observation. What it looks like, what it generally does, what it causes, can be seen, but as Rover themselves say, the Etheric Sea and the tacit fields that it makes is beyond current human capability to predict or understand. And with this, we reach our final question. Now that we know what the Etheric Sea is and where its cultural and literary basis comes from, why exactly is such a thing important, especially within the context of Lahairoi? We know from the existing lore entries and live streams that the ultimate goal of the Space Trek Collective is to reach space, with two real ways to do it: above, below, above, below. As of current, the method the Academy seems to advocate for is the path underground, past the Strider Gate, essentially taking a path of the Exostrider, which seems to come from space, the path it originally took to come to Lahairoi. This is why synchronization and the solar skin, which are created from the neural pathways of the Exostrider, are being studied. If we can jack into the Exostrider's memories and what it's thinking, then we could also trek back the path to space past the Strider Gate, I assume, that this giant robot took to get here in the first place. However, the second option that has always failed is to break through the Etheric Sea itself to reach space through the planet's atmosphere. Considering that nothing has bypassed the Etheric Sea in thousands of years, we can see that it has effectively placed the world of Solaris free, under an eternal siege. However, one of the interesting theories that you can have for the Etheric Sea blockading the atmosphere of Solaris free is that it is not a force keeping us under siege, but actually protecting us from what is outside in space. Although I don't like to rely on the Dreaming Deep lore, as it isn't something that I fully take as canon, within it we can learn that it seems like the moon in Solaris free is nothing but an artificial satellite built by a previous civilization. In the same passage, this previous civilization hopes that this artificial moon will inspire people, giving them the time they need to eventually break into space. The same speaker further says, "Perhaps for countless generations to come, people will look up at the same sky, seeing the same view, and only much, much later will they finally learn that it was our tombstone." We know that the Etheric Sea is made up of remnant energy, which stores memories and even existences of beings, which is why it was capable of creating mirages, TDs, and phantoms in Jinzhou. Were the ancient civilization sucked up into the Etheric Sea for it to become their resting place? Did the ancient civilization actually create the Etheric Sea in a way to actually protect the people of Solaris free from space? It's a very interesting thought to have, and perhaps, unsurprisingly by now, something that even has parallels to the sentient ocean in Stanislaw Lem's Solaris. Within the book, the sentient giant ocean mass resides on a planet called, well, Solaris, which itself is located in a very odd galaxy. The planet Solaris actually has a binary orbit, orbiting two suns at the same time. This naturally makes the planet's trajectory incredibly unstable, and it is said that the sentient ocean of Solaris actually is capable of self-correction, of manipulating gravity and spacetime itself to make sure the entire planet maintains a stable orbit. It is possible that, like the Solarian Ocean, the Etheric Sea is similar. It is actually something designed to keep us safe, to keep us stable, to keep the truly dangerous things in space away from us. Ever since the emergence of the Etheric Sea, there seemed to only have been one thing that's broken through from space into Solaris free, being the Frenodian LF1. Let's put things into perspective. We haven't had contact with space for thousands of years, and when something comes in, it's a bloody Frenodian. It's really not too difficult to hypothesize that the Etheric Sea may have been a legacy, even a litmus test, from the previous civilization for the people of Solaris free. Once we finally break through the Etheric Sea and reach space, will we then be ready to face the potential horrors waiting for us on the cosmic horizon? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. The Etheric Sea is something that I always found interesting, something that is mentioned in passing, almost taken for granted by the people residing in Solaris free, but very unknown by us as a player. If you enjoy content like this, I would appreciate if you subscribe, even support me by donating or becoming a member of the channel, or if you have any thoughts, critiques or whatnot, to place them in the comments. I hope you all have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you all in 3.1.